Welcome, everyone. Gather around. Before we step into today's story, I want to take a quick moment to talk to you directly. If you want the full continuation of these stories, more uncensored 18-plus Ancient BL content, extended scenes, and unlimited royal forbidden romance, you can join us on Patreon at SpicyAncientBL. YouTube, as you know, does not allow us to show or monetize everything freely here. The deeper, more intense, and steamy versions of these stories, the parts where the palace doors finally close, are waiting for you there. You can find the link in the description and the pinned comment. Thank you for your support and for letting me tell you these stories. Now, take a deep breath. Let the modern world fade away. Imagine the scent of burning sandalwood, the sound of heavy rain striking ancient clay roof tiles, and the vast, suffocating walls of the great Jian imperial palace. Our story begins not with love, but with ruin. 3 years ago, the kingdom of Qi fell in a sea of fire and blood. The Yan Empire's army, led by the ruthless and brilliant Crown Prince Jian, swept through the capital like a storm. When the dust settled, the Qi royal family was entirely wiped out, or so the world believed. Amidst the ashes, a young man was dragged from the ruins of the palace, his face smeared with soot, his fine silk robes torn to rags. This was Shen. To the soldiers, he was just another beautiful, nameless servant of the conquered court, taken as spoils of war. But hidden beneath his tattered robes, pressed tightly against his heart, was a fractured piece of white jade, the royal seal of the Qi heir. Shen was the last surviving prince of the fallen kingdom. He was brought to the Yan capital in chains, a captive meant to serve the very people who destroyed his home. And by some cruel twist of fate, or perhaps the dark humor of the gods, he was assigned to the personal pavilion of the man who led the slaughter, Crown Prince Jian. Prince Jian was a man forged from cold iron. At 24, he was a towering figure in the palace, feared by his enemies and respected by his generals. He had eyes like winter wolves, sharp, piercing, and entirely devoid of warmth. He spoke rarely, but when he did, his voice was a low rumble that commanded absolute obedience. He lived for duty, for the empire, and for the sword. But there was something about the new servant, this quiet, defiant boy named Shen, that caught the crown prince's eye. It wasn't just Shen's breathtaking beauty, though his pale skin, dark, ink-like hair, and sharp, delicate features were whispered about by everyone in the servants' quarters. No, it was his eyes. Even while kneeling on the hard wooden floor, grinding ink for the man who destroyed his life, Shen's eyes burned with a silent, unbroken fire. He refused to shatter. And for Prince Jian, a man who had conquered everything he touched, that defiance was intoxicating. It's late autumn. The wind howling outside the pavilion is biting, but inside the crown prince's study, the air is thick, warm, and heavy with unspoken tension. Shen kneels beside the low ebony desk, his long, slender fingers working the inkstone. The rhythmic grinding sound is the only noise in the massive, dimly lit room. Jian sits beside him, reading military scrolls. They are close, too close. If Shen leaned just an inch to his left, his shoulder would brush against the prince's dark crimson robes. Shen keeps his eyes downcast, his breathing shallow. He hates this man. He has sworn to avenge his family, but being this close to Jian, it does things to him. He can feel the heat radiating from the prince's broad chest. He can smell the faint scent of rain, leather, and sharp pine that always clings to Jian's skin. You are grinding too hard. Jian's deep voice suddenly breaks the silence. Shen's hand freezes. He doesn't look up. This servant apologizes, Your Highness. His voice is smooth, polite, but dripping with a subtle, icy edge. Jian slowly lowers his scroll. He turns his head, his piercing gaze locking onto the side of Shen's face. He watches the way the candlelight catches on Shen's eyelashes, the slight tremble in the boy's jaw. You say the words of a servant, Jian murmurs, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. But you do not kneel like one. Your back is too straight. Your chin is too high. Shen swallows hard. He forces his head lower. I will correct my posture, Your Highness. Before Shen can pull away, Jian's large, calloused hand reaches out. His fingers, rough from years of wielding a sword, lightly grip Shen's chin. The touch is sudden, electrifying. Shen gasps softly, his eyes finally darting up to meet Jian's. Time seems to stop. Jian's thumb brushes against Shen's lower lip. It's a completely inappropriate gesture. It crosses every boundary between master and servant. Shen's heart hammers against his ribs like a trapped bird. He knows he should pull away. He knows it might cost him his life to show anger. But the sheer magnetic force of Jian's dark eyes holds him entirely paralyzed. Do not hide your eyes from me, Shen, Jian whispers, leaning in just a fraction of an inch, his breath grazing Shen's cheek. I want to see the hatred in them. It is the most honest thing in this entire palace. Shen's breath hitches. He glares at the prince, his chest rising and falling rapidly. If your highness knows I hate him, why keep me so close? Why not send me to the outer courtyards, or have me killed? Jian's lips curve into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. He slowly releases Shen's chin, his fingers trailing down the pale line of Shen's neck, sending a violent shiver down the young man's spine. Because, Jian says softly, turning back to his scrolls, I prefer my enemies where I can see them. Keep grinding the ink. Shen's hands are trembling as he returns to the inkstone. His mind is a chaotic storm. He tells himself it's rage. It has to be rage. But the spot on his neck where Jian's fingers lingered feels as though it has been branded by fire. Months pass, and this dangerous, unspoken game between them only deepens. The palace is a place of whispers and venom. The emperor is growing old, and the court is divided. There are concubines plotting to place their own sons on the throne, nobles whispering behind silk screens, and generals quietly taking sides. In this viper's nest, Prince Jian trusts no one, except, strangely, Shen. Shen becomes Jian's shadow. He attends him at meals, dresses him for court, and waits in the wings during royal banquets. And everywhere they go, the tension between them crackles like lightning waiting to strike. One afternoon, in the secluded royal archery grounds, Jian is practicing his longbow. It's the peak of summer. The heat is oppressive. Jian has stripped down to his inner white robes, the thin silk clinging to his sweat-drenched chest and broad shoulders. Shen stands a few paces away, holding a tray of ice water, watching him. He tries not to stare, he really does. But watching the effortless, lethal grace of the crown prince as he draws the heavy bowstring back, the muscles in his back shifting like carved marble under the fabric, it makes Shen's mouth go dry. Thwack. Another arrow hits the dead center of the target, 100 yards away. Jian lowers the bow and turns, catching Shen staring. Shen immediately drops his gaze, his cheeks flushing pink. Jian walks over, his breathing heavy, his chest heaving slightly. He doesn't take the water. Instead, he holds out the massive, black iron bow. Hold it, Jian commands. Shen hesitates. Your Highness, weapons are forbidden for servants. I gave you an order, Shen. Slowly, hesitantly, Shen places the tray down and reaches for the bow. The moment his hands take the weight, his arms give out. The bow is incredibly heavy. Shen stumbles forward, but before he can fall, Jian catches him. Jian's arm wraps firmly around Shen's waist, pulling him flush against his own hot, sweat-dampened body. Shen gasps, his eyes flying wide. He is trapped against the prince's chest, the hard muscle and intense heat of the man pressing into his back. Too heavy? Jian whispers, his lips right next to Shen's ear. Yes, Shen stammers, his voice betraying him, trembling wildly. He tries to pull away, but Jian's arm only tightens around his waist, locking him in place. Let me show you, Jian murmurs. Jian brings his other hand up, covering Shen's pale hands on the bow. He guides Shen's arms upward. He steps even closer, his chest pressed so tightly against Shen's back that Shen can feel the heavy, rhythmic thud of the prince's heartbeat. Jian's face is buried in the crook of Shen's neck. Shen can feel the hot breath on his skin, smelling the masculine musk of sweat, iron, and sandalwood. Keep your shoulders down, Jian instructs softly, his voice a low rumble that vibrates through Shen's entire body. Jian's hands are rough over Shen's soft skin. He guides Shen to pull the string back. The tension of the bow is immense, but with Jian's strength behind him, they draw it fully. Shen's mind is blank. He can't focus on the target. He can only focus on the scorching heat of Jian's body pressed against his, the way Jian's thigh rests against the back of his legs, the way Jian's thumb strokes the back of his hand. It is entirely, devastatingly intimate. Release, Jian whispers against his ear. Shen's fingers slip. The arrow flies, striking the edge of the target. Jian doesn't let go. Even after the arrow is gone, he keeps Shen pinned against him. The silence in the courtyard is deafening, broken only by their ragged breathing. Shen closes his eyes, a desperate, forbidden warmth curling in the pit of his stomach. He hates this man. He hates him. But why does he want to lean back into the embrace? Why does he want Jian to never let him go? Your Highness, Shen whispers, his voice cracking. Someone will see. Let them, Jian replies, his voice dark and possessive. But slowly, reluctantly, he releases his grip. Shen practically stumbles forward, gasping for air, as if he had been drowning, fleeing back to the shadows of the pavilion without looking back, leaving Jian standing alone in the courtyard, staring at his retreating figure with an intensity that could melt steel. And if you are enjoying this intense, slow burn, forbidden royal tension, remember, the story doesn't have to stop at the bedroom doors. The extended, completely uncensored 18-plus continuation of this story, and many others, is waiting for you on Patreon at SpicyAncientBL. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Now, let's return to the palace. Winter arrives, wrapping the Jian imperial palace in a thick blanket of snow. With winter comes the emperor's grand birthday banquet. The great hall is a sea of gold, crimson, and jade. Hundreds of nobles, generals, and foreign diplomats are gathered. Silk sleeves flutter as dancers twirl in the center, and the air is thick with the smell of roasted meats, sweet wine, and heavy perfumes. Jian sits on a raised dais near the emperor, looking regal, cold, and utterly untouchable in his black and gold ceremonial robes. Shen kneels slightly behind him, tasked with keeping the prince's cup full of warm plum wine. The banquet is a political battlefield. Nobility from across the empire are parading their daughters in front of the crown prince, desperate to secure a marriage. Jian ignores them all, his eyes half closed, drinking the wine Shen pours. But Shen is suffering. Every time a beautiful, high-born princess smiles at Jian, every time a minister offers a bride to the prince, Shen feels a strange, agonizing twisting in his chest. It's a bitter, ugly feeling. Jealousy. He doesn't want to admit it. He tells himself he just despises the excess of the Jian court. But when a particularly bold noblewoman from the southern provinces, accidentally, spills wine on Jian's table just to lean close and show off her cleavage, Shen's grip on the wine pitcher turns white-knuckled. Jian notices. He notices everything about Shen. Later in the evening, the wine flows heavily. A drunken general, a man who had fought in the siege of Qi, stumbles up the stairs toward the prince's table to offer a toast. As he slurs his words, his bloodshot eyes land on Shen. Well, well, the general sneers, a nasty smile spreading across his flushed face. I know this one. I remember the day we dragged the Qi servants out of the mud. You've grown into quite the little beauty, haven't you, boy? Shen freezes, his blood running cold. The general reaches out a thick, sweaty hand, grabbing Shen by the chin, much like Jian had done months ago. But this touch is vile, heavy with crude intent. Maybe His Highness would let me borrow you for the night? I have a fondness for conquered things. Silence falls over the immediate area. The dancers continue in the center, but the nobles nearby hold their breath. Before Shen can even pull away, there is a sharp, terrifying sound. Crack. The jade wine cup in Jian's hand shatters into pieces. Jian doesn't yell. He doesn't stand up. He simply turns his head, fixing his wolf-like eyes on the general. The temperature in the room seems to plummet by 20 degrees. Remove your hand, Jian says. His voice is barely above a whisper, yet it cuts through the noise of the banquet like a blade. The general blinks, confused, his drunken mind slow to process the mortal danger he is in. Your Highness? I only meant, if you do not remove your hand from my servant in the next 3 seconds, Jian says, his voice eerily calm, I will sever it from your arm and feed it to the hunting dogs. 1. The general pales, instantly dropping his hand and stumbling backward, falling to his knees in terror. Forgive me, Your Highness. I was drunk. I meant no offense. Jian doesn't even look at the man anymore. He pulls a silk handkerchief from his sleeve and holds it out to Shen. Shen is trembling, his chest heaving, his pride wounded but his heart beating wildly at the prince's violent protection. Wipe your face, Jian orders softly, his eyes flicking down to where the general's dirty fingers had touched Shen's skin, and go wait for me in my chambers. Shen bows his head, taking the silk cloth, and practically flees the great hall. Later that night, the snow is falling heavily outside the crown prince's private chambers. The only light comes from the glowing brazier in the center of the room. Shen is sitting on the edge of the low bed, his mind racing. Why did Jian do that? Why does he look at him like that? The heavy wooden doors slide open, letting in a gust of freezing wind, followed by Prince Jian. Jian dismisses the guards with a wave of his hand and closes the door. The loud click of the lock echoes in the quiet room. Shen stands up immediately, bowing low. Jian doesn't say a word. He walks slowly toward Shen, his towering frame casting a long, intimidating shadow in the firelight. He stops just inches away. Shen can smell the sweet plum wine on his breath, mixed with the sharp scent of the winter cold. Did he hurt you? Jian asks, his voice thick, rough. No, Your Highness, Shen replies quietly, refusing to look up. Jian reaches out, but this time, he doesn't grab Shen's chin. His large hands gently, almost hesitantly, cup the sides of Shen's face. The touch is so tender it makes Shen's breath catch in his throat. Jian tilts Shen's head up. Jian's thumb slowly rubs the skin of Shen's jaw, right where the general had touched him, as if trying to erase the memory of it. No one touches what is mine, Jian whispers, his eyes dark, swirling with an emotion so intense it terrifies Shen. I am not a thing to be owned, Shen whispers back, his voice shaking, tears of frustration and overwhelming emotion pricking his eyes. I am a prisoner of war. I am your enemy. You are my ruin, Jian replies, his voice cracking, shedding the cold, iron mask he wears for the world. Suddenly, Jian closes the distance. He crushes his lips against Shen's. Shen gasps into the kiss, his eyes flying wide. It is forceful, desperate, hungry. Jian's hands slide to the back of Shen's head, tangling in his long, dark hair, holding him in place as he devours his mouth. The taste of plum wine and danger floods Shen's senses. Shen's first instinct is to fight. He pushes his hands against Jian's broad chest, but the moment his palms feel the rapid, frantic beating of Jian's heart, his resistance crumbles. The months of suppressed tension, the lingering gazes, the brushing of hands, the suffocating jealousy, it all detonates at once. Shen lets out a soft, pathetic whimper and grips the front of Jian's robes, pulling the prince closer, kissing him back with a ferocity that matches his own. They stumble backward, knocking over a small table, the sound muffled by the thick carpets. Jian presses Shen against one of the massive wooden pillars of the bed, his body pinning Shen securely against the wood. Jian kisses his jaw, his neck, his hands roaming over Shen's waist, pulling the smaller man flush against his hips. The friction, the heat, the sheer desperation of their touches is blinding. Jian groans against his neck, his lips burning a trail over Shen's collarbone. I have wanted to do this since the day I pulled you from the mud. You killed my people, Shen sobs, even as he arches his neck, granting Jian more access, his hands desperately clutching the prince's broad shoulders. I know, Jian whispers fiercely, pulling back just enough to look into Shen's tear-filled eyes. Hate me, strike me, plunge a dagger into my heart if you must. But do not turn away from me. You are mine, Shen. In this life and the next, you are mine. The tension in the room is thick enough to choke on. The air is heavy with the scent of desire and despair. Shen stares into the eyes of his sworn enemy, the man who destroyed his world, and realizes with horrifying clarity that he is hopelessly, irreversibly in love with him. Shen pulls Jian down by the collar, capturing his lips again, surrendering to the fire that threatens to burn them both to ash. For weeks, their affair remains a dangerous, fiercely guarded secret. By day, they play their roles perfectly, the cold prince and the quiet servant. But at night, behind locked doors, the power dynamic shifts entirely. In the darkness of the bedchamber, Jian worships Shen. The Iron Conqueror drops to his knees for the captured prince, kissing his scars, mapping every inch of his skin, murmuring words of devotion that would make the imperial court tremble. But a secret in the Jian palace can only stay hidden for so long. Spring arrives, bringing cherry blossoms and deadly political intrigue. The emperor's spies have been watching. They have noticed the prince's strange attachment to the beautiful servant. Worse, rumors from the border suggest that a faction of Qi loyalists is gathering, rallying behind the rumor that the youngest Qi prince survived the massacre. One evening, while Jian is away at a military council, Shen is summoned to the emperor's private study. The emperor is an old, ruthless man, his face scarred by a lifetime of war. He sits behind his desk, flanked by heavily armed imperial guards. Shen is forced to his knees. He keeps his head bowed, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm. They say my son has taken a liking to you, the emperor rasps, his voice like dry leaves. A pity. You are a beautiful creature, but you are a distraction, and my son cannot afford distractions. The emperor motions to a guard. The guard steps forward, drawing a long, wicked-looking dagger, and tosses it onto the floor in front of Shen. The metal clangs loudly against the stone. There are whispers, the emperor continues, that you are not just a servant. Whispers that you bear the royal blood of Qi. If my son finds out he has been harboring the enemy prince, it will destroy his claim to the throne. The court will demand his execution for treason. Shen's blood turns to ice. He doesn't care about his own life. But the thought of Jian being executed, the thought of Jian falling because of him, it tears his soul apart. So I will give you a choice, little bird, the emperor says cruelly. You can take that dagger and end your own life tonight, or my guards will drag you to the dungeon, tear the truth from your flesh, piece by piece, and then I will execute my own son for conspiring with the enemy. The choice is yours. Shen stares at the dagger, the cold, gleaming steel. If he lives, Jian dies. If he dies, Jian becomes the emperor. Jian lives. Shen's hands tremble as he reaches out. He grasps the hilt of the dagger. It is heavy, cold. He thinks of Jian's smile, the rare, secret smile that belongs only to him. He thinks of Jian's heavy hands, the warmth of his chest, the scent of pine and rain. A single tear slips down Shen's cheek. Live well, my prince, he thinks. Shen raises the dagger, aiming the point at his own heart, and closes his eyes. He thrusts the blade inward. Stop. The heavy oak doors of the study explode open. Prince Jian bursts into the room, his eyes wild, his sword already drawn and dripping with rain. He must have ridden his horse straight through the palace gates. Before anyone can react, before the guards can even raise their spears, Jian crosses the room with blinding speed. He strikes Shen's hand, knocking the dagger away, just as the tip pierces the silk of Shen's robe, leaving a small, blooming red stain on his chest. Jian drops his sword and collapses to his knees, pulling Shen into his arms, crushing the boy against his armored chest. Jian is shaking. The fearsome, untouchable crown prince of Yan is trembling violently. Jian? Shen whispers, stunned, looking up at the man's terrified face. Jian doesn't look at him. He turns his fierce, murderous glare to his father, the emperor. The guards step forward, spears leveled at the prince, but the emperor holds up a hand, his eyes narrowed. Have you lost your mind, Jian? You draw steel in my presence? For a conquered slave? He is not a slave, Jian roars, his voice shaking the very foundations of the room. He pulls Shen tighter against him, shielding Shen's body with his own. He is Shen, Prince of Qi, and he is mine. The room goes dead silent. The emperor stares at his son, his face turning purple with rage. You knew? You knew who he was, and you kept him? You harbor a traitor to the throne? I harbor my heart. Jian shouts back, his eyes blazing with a defiant, reckless fire. If he is an enemy of Yan, then I am an enemy of Yan. If he must die, then you will have to cut through me to reach him. Shen is weeping silently, clutching the front of Jian's armor. Jian, stop, please, he will kill you. Jian looks down at Shen, his chaotic expression softening into something so tender, so heartbreakingly beautiful, it makes the breath leave Shen's lungs. Jian brushes the hair from Shen's tear-stained face. I told you, Jian whispers softly, only for Shen to hear. In this life and the next, I would burn this entire empire to ash before I let anyone take you from me. Jian stands up slowly, pulling Shen up with him, keeping him safely behind his broad back. He stares down his father, the most powerful man in the world, without an ounce of fear. I renounce my title, Jian says coldly, his voice echoing in the vast room. The emperor gasps, gripping the arms of his throne. What? I renounce my claim to the throne of Yan, Jian repeats, his voice steady and resolute. He reaches up and unties the heavy gold clasp of his royal headpiece, letting it crash to the floor. Keep your empire, father. Keep your court, your wars, and your empty throne. I am taking him, and we are leaving. If any of your men try to follow us, I will show them why they call me the god of war. The emperor is speechless. The guards are frozen in terror, refusing to attack the legendary general they have worshipped for years. Jian turns, wraps his heavy woolen cloak around Shen's trembling shoulders, and takes his hand. His grip is firm, warm, and absolute. Together, they walk out of the emperor's study. They walk out of the suffocating, blood-stained halls of the imperial palace. They walk out into the cool, pouring rain of the spring night, leaving the empire behind. Legend says that the Yan Empire never recovered from the loss of its greatest prince. The emperor died a few years later, bitter and alone, and the kingdom fractured. But far to the south, deep in a valley, surrounded by mist-covered mountains and quiet bamboo forests, a small, beautiful manor was built. There, a tall man with eyes like a winter wolf, who used to command armies, spends his days chopping wood, brewing tea, and fiercely loving a beautiful man with sharp eyes and a royal bearing. There are no titles there, no masters, no servants, no empires to conquer. There is only Jian and his Shen. In the quiet of the night, when the rain hits the roof tiles, Jian pulls Shen into his arms, kissing the faded scar on his chest, reminding him every single day that some captives end up capturing the very ones who hold the key. Thank you for listening to this story. If your heart is racing and you want the next part, the uncensored continuation, and more unlimited 18+ ancient royal BL stories, come join Spicy Ancient BL on Patreon. The scenes where Jian and Shen are alone behind locked doors, where the tension boils over into passionate, deeply detailed romance, are waiting for you there. The link is waiting for you in the description and the pinned comment. Until next time, keep the lanterns lit, and I will see you in the next story.